Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we share the experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about getting into aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. My name is Ben. I am a pilot with an IFR rating and a commercial certificate based in the metro Atlanta area, flying a Cessna 182 I like to call the Beast. Joining me tonight, as always, from the home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie, also known as Nashville. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. It's our friend Brian. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Super excited about tonight's episode and glad to be with you guys. And I see that we do different intros for the audio versus this live podcast. And so we have people in the chat now wondering what that was talking about. And so when we hand it over to Ted, maybe Ted can explain. Our friend Erica at Aerosafe, she said icing on the what? And so when we get back over to Ted, I want Ted to explain what icing on the vegetables is.
Speaking of our friend Ted, from Portland, Oregon, flying a flight design CTLS, not a Cessna, a CTLS. And we call it the egg. He's our sport pilot extraordinaire. Ted, good evening, sir.
Hey, it's nice to be here. So icing on the vegetables. Not all of us are great with words like Brian is. Some of us, it's a surprise that we're on a podcast. And I was trying to come up with an analogy, and the best I could come up with was icing on the vegetables. It was like a good thing coating a bad thing. And yeah, so, that was fun.
That's when we had Brian with the Y from Just Plain Silly as a guest.
Oh, was it? Okay. But, speaking of the Cessna CTLS, why do you hate the egg?
Yeah. Ted, you guys kind of treat me either like your big brother or your dad. And, you rotate duties as which is my favorite child. And I guess last week, Brian was my favorite child because we blew right past your aviation story. I just completely forgot about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's we had a good episode last week. But yeah, it was
we did.
Let's go around the table. Ben, Brian, we're done.
That's exactly what happened. But because I like Brian better last week. Now this week I might like you better.
The thing is we have a sheet that we're following here. What happened?
Because Ben doesn't read the sheet as closely as he should. That's what happened. I blew right through the main topic tonight, which is flying those patterns. But that's just what I do. ADHD. I like to skip around.
Yeah.
So before we get into the main topic, we just a quick update on our big Texas Send fly-in in Fredericksburg, Texas. If you have RSVP'd, we have sent out an email update. And I tell you this in that if you have RSVP'd and did not get the email, which means that I probably typed the email address wrong in our little tracking sheet, let us know. Let us hear from you. midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com and let us know. It's just kind of a couple of points that everybody needs to know: parking, podcasting, stuff like that. So we're getting excited about it. The hotel has a waiting list because it is sold out. So if you still want an RSVP, you certainly can. You can go to the midlifepilotpodcast.com and you'll see a link to the RSVP page.
Also, we understand that plans change. You thought you wanted to go, then it started getting closer. You started thinking about it. You thought, wait, I'm going to have to see these guys in person and talk to them or whatever. Number one, you don't even have to talk to us if you come. So that's purely optional. No, but in all seriousness, if you RSVP'd and your plans changed, it's very important that not only do you let the hotel know so that the next person on the waiting list can get a room, but also let us know so that we have a reasonable sense of what's actually happening, which is a rare thing.
Yes.
We need all the help we can get. Yeah.
That's right.
For sure. Well, Brian, why don't we go ahead and address the belly scrubbing real quick, and we can catch up.
Let's knock it out. By the way, Nathan Ballard's in the chat here saying, I want a big Texas Send shirt. Is that available yet? Yeah, go to the website, midlifepilotpodcast.com. It's there. And, we'll probably do some different ones at some point. So, belly wash, housekeeping. We are grateful for you all making this the best pilot community that we know of. A positive space where we share everything from training experiences, shared personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends. Please connect with us. Join our Patreon community, $1 a month, or do a one-time annual Patreon, 25 cents per episode. We believe we're worth it. We hope that you do too. You can access exclusive content there, including check ride debriefs, killing zone conversations, and more. There's a lot of really great content there, so highly recommend. And of course, the Discord server, which is the place where we all gather, and it's a very active place. People like Ben have even said, I don't even use really social media anymore. That is my social media. So if you're looking to get away from social media but make more meaningful connections, maybe that's a place to go. 10% supports Freedom Aviation Network's anti-human trafficking efforts. You can watch us live YouTube Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern, except for tonight. We're doing it on a Sunday. Sometimes that'll happen. And if you're in the Discord, you'll know. Share your stories at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com, and we read all the messages, and you might even hear yours on the show. For everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, dad hats, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com. And now, Ted.
Yes. Also on the merch store is the Texas Send shirts. So
yes.
Not just dad hats. Yeah.
Yeah, I got dad shirts. So now I was instructed to hand off to Ted. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hand off to Ted now. Ted.
So smooth.
I believe you have some community updates for us.
I do. So we have some new Patreon supporters this week. I'd like to thank those. At the Landomatic level, we have Mark T. It's my friend Mark. We have Jacob P. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Jason W. And at the Caps Available level, we have Jeff C. So thanks all for joining us. That's it's always fun to see new names coming in. As far as the Discord this week, it's been so busy lately. But the couple of things I noticed was a lot of talk about instrument training and check rides, and it's okay to wait on your check ride. Some real talk about that, kind of the stress about that. And Mr. Geek talked about his Surefly Magneto, and there's a lot of talk about that system and about upgrading magnetos. I think Alyssa just had her magnetos out as well, so that's the sort of thing that gets talked about. And then we now have 3 sport pilots in the Discord server. So
do you find the Magneto conversation redundant?
But
very much so. Yes, it's electrifying. Yeah. So I
got nothing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
just want to thank everyone for participating in the Discord there. One thing I was going to say, we were talking about Killing Zone conversations, and something that came up in Discord a few weeks ago was Killing Zone 2nd edition is out of print. You can't get it. You can actually buy a $650 copy on Amazon because the bots are crazy there.
I'll sell you mine for $400. It's right here. Look, perfect. Look at the condition. Look at that.
Our Discord server knows there's a 3rd edition coming out, and when we have more information on that, we'll share it. And it was really cool to figure that out. Actually, emailed Paul Craig and got some details from him on that. So got the whole story about why it had to go out of print before the third edition came in. Some cool stuff like that, I thought.
That's awesome. That is so
Yeah.
cool. I mean, and congrats for him to, selling out editions of his book and so more coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Well, you got some feedback for us.
Yeah, and also there's some it's getting pretty punny in the chat right now. This Magneto
Yeah, let's hit that.
thing has kind of spilled over. One Told Geek, I'm just trying to create a spark.
Yep.
Erica Aerosafe says, y'all know that rubber stuff that is inside the cowling? So it's baffling. Oh, so many good dad jokes going on and mom jokes.
Yes.
So, all right. Listener feedback. Just a quick, reminder. You guys can leave 5-star reviews. We won't get mad. And we forget to ask for those. They do actually help in the algorithm-driven world of podcasting and things. Real quick, I'll read a review that we got, and then I want to mention a next level feedback that we got. So, new review. It's from Dev C. Thanks, Dev C, for this. He says, "Come for the planes, stay for the people. This is a great way to spend an hour a week listening to a group talk through general aviation and how they apply it. But if that's all you do with this podcast, you are only getting 10% of the value. The community they have built is the real benefit. Joining to participate or just lurk in the Discord opens up conversations about flight planning, training, and all of the things you would normally have to be in a hangar to participate in. You know you have built a great community in aviation when people come for the planes and they stay for the people. Listen to the show, but if you join the community, you will see what I mean." Thank you, Dev C, for that. And, we are thrilled if the podcast is sort of incidental to a larger community. That's. I'm not saying that that's what that's insinuating, but it's like, I love it. It's
It really
why
does
we
capture.
started. It's why. It's why we're here.
I 100% agree with that, and I think he summarized it very well. And he's been a great supporter of the community.
And we are not here to be experts. So the only value we can provide is for you to laugh at how dumb we are and to be your friends in aviation. And it's great seeing clusters of people around the country and all this coming together. So you can send us feedback at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. There is another way though. For our special Patreons, you can actually just give Brian a call.
I wanted to send a special thanks to our friend Erica of Aerosafe and Gilbert Aviation and all of the great things that she does. She understands a lot of things that we struggle to understand. And she translates reality sometimes. So last episode, I was talking about not an incident, but a situation where I was on a cross country. It was very, very bumpy, ended up in some heavy turbulence to the level of maybe what I had not experienced before, with a passenger who also is a pilot and had not quite felt that level of turbulence before. And I explained in that last episode that my response instinctively for what, you're always going to go to your primacy, or I don't know, your first thought is going to be whatever it is. I pulled the power and put the nose down. I probably didn't make it very clear in the last episode, but I pulled all the power out and put the nose down. So we got some great listener feedback for that. Erica called me and wanted to give me some, CFI level insight to that. And it was very, very helpful conversation. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, Erica. And we will share in the show notes what she shared with me. She basically mentioned some Rob Machado videos that are around maneuvering speed, and we just had a great conversation around there's a way to look at maneuvering speed that I don't think that you get in your primary training, and the idea that the plane is going to stall before you get into structural trouble is a distinction that sometimes can be elusive. So all that to be said, she didn't say I did the wrong thing. I just did a thing. And, that was just how I reacted to it. I just wanted to slow down everything, but I wanted to keep air flowing over the wings. So, all right. Thank you for that, Erica. And thank you again, Dev C, for that feedback. Again, leave us 5 stars if you can on all the places and click all the buttons. So that is all I got there.
Nice. So we got a new Patreon member in the chat tonight, Jeff C. He says he is a sport pilot for years that has now bought a 53 Pacer and is about to do his PPL check ride soon. So definitely keep us posted on that. We love to hear check ride stories. Good luck on it. That's really, really cool.
So cool.
And thank you for support on Patreon as well.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. He was on our list of people we thanked this week at the Caps Available level. So Jeff, nice to see you. Yeah.
Definitely.
You'll always be a sport pilot to me.
Yes.
Yes.
Sport pilot at heart. So we're going to go to Ted today because I was so rudely skipping him over last week. Ted has put up a couple of really good videos too, by the way. Of course, all of his videos are great because they're all completely amazing scenery. All he has to do is take off and he's in the best views of the world.
The green screen in his hangar is indiscernible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, you took a friend up to Boeing Field, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. BFI, famous Boeing field that has the weirdest missed approach procedure of many airports because it's actually kind of a tunnel to stay below other airports. There's three major airports, 2 Charlies and a Bravo. And so yeah, you've got to be on your game when you go into there. And it's actually the first time they've ever been switched to tower to cross a runway. And it makes sense. And I know other people have experienced that. But for me, when I was taxiing along and they said, okay, go to tower, it's like, I'm not taking off. Why? And so, the things you learn. But yeah, the video I put up was the trip home from there, I believe. And
but there was if I remember correctly, sorry to interrupt, but there was an arrival procedure basically, was there not?
Yes.
Do I remember that correctly?
Yes.
That I guess it's just not something, the airspace is so unique that it makes sense to do it. But can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah. Depending on whether they're landing to the south or to the north, they use various checkpoints to the west, which is just over the water. And so you kind of need to know that when you're coming in. They're going to say, use the Blake arrival. You're like, great, I know where Blake is. It's between, it's below Bainbridge, and the next one below is with a V. Anyway, so you need to know that before you get there. And thankfully, I've been there before. This is, I think, my 3rd time. And I had the PDFs, and we sat there in the plane and reviewed it even before we got up there. And there was a reason I asked the controllers when I was headed in there. They're like, oh, do you have, Quebec? And I'm like, what direction are they landing? And I'm going to approach that because it really changes what you need to know as you're going in there. So yeah, it's a bit of an adventure of an airport.
Is there ever a time that any of the Charlies or Bravos are in opposing patterns? Like some will be landing to the south and others will be landing to the north? I don't know. Or do they usually all follow the same?
I think they generally follow the same. Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Yeah. I found that very interesting. I learned quite a bit on those videos. And even though that I skipped you last week, I really, so Ted called me up after the podcast last week, Brian. No. He's like, dude, what is the deal?
Standing right here.
Yeah, exactly. We just ignored him in front of his face. So
then the other video was just doing some winter pattern work at a local airport. And I'd gone out flying. There's kind of some snow, so there's low clouds, and it's certain areas are blocked off, and so I couldn't make it to the airport I wanted to. So I went to a different Delta, and it's one that tends to be a little bit demanding on the radio. And but I went in there, and I made mistakes getting in. I had some great laps in the pattern. I was the only one, which is usually not actually a good sign, right? Like if you're the only VFR pilot out, what does that say about you? So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love your
And-
videos, man, because your plane just has a really cool view too, is the thing.
Oh yeah. It's a bubble. It's just it's a goldfish bowl. So that really helps as well. Even like this, where it's like, I only have 2 cameras. I don't have these amazing outside views. I don't have Virgil Plane Places view, where he just has these awesome views underneath the plane that I love. But even just with the basics, I can make something that looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
That's
you
very cool.
had 2 accomplishments this week, Brian. Well, besides putting out some videos, but with your flying.
Oh,
And it's why he's had a smile pasted on his face and over the last 3 days without it going away.
Is everybody ready to drink?
everybody ready?
This is straight vodka, this whole bottle right here.
Okay.
Preparing
Get
for this
ready.
moment.
Get your bingo boards out.
Yes.
I did a little cub flying and tail wheel. I said it.
Tail wheel.
Yes.
But something mixed in with that.
More importantly, here's what I did before. There's usually when you're flying, you have a singular type of experience. You're going somewhere, you get there, and that's great. Or you're going up for a particular type of training and you're focused on doing that particular thing, and then you're done, and that's great. I got the best surprise ever in the sense that I got to go up and get some instrument training, flew some approaches with an instructor friend of mine, and then got a little ride in a Cub. And so I had never even, this might be not big news for other people, but I had never really been up close and ridden in a Cub before. So J3, and I had the experience that everybody talks about, or you hear a lot of people talk about. I was immediately the sight, the sound, the smells, the feeling, the vibration of it, just everything, the sort of haggardness of it all. I just loved it. It was something I definitely want more of. So there's that. But more importantly, I had some really fun instrument flying. It turns out, guys, it's really not hard as long as it's not real. It's really not that hard.
Can you mark the tape, Ted? 23, almost 24 minutes into episode 116.
Guys, I don't know what you guys are all worked up about, this whole instrument thing. I mean, I was all worked up about it. I realized this is actually super easy. All you do, it's like you're just following these instructions. But I guess if it was real, it would be different. So, I had a very, very good session. We were doing, but I'll tell you this, and maybe Ben, you can tell me this is just how it goes. But going to a non-towered airport to fly practice approaches, we had to break off of the course reversal twice and had to break off of final twice because it was like somebody just cut loose a conveyor belt of Cirruses on 20-mile finals. And they were all coming in, and about half of them were even communicating on the radio at all. So it was a horror show of just Cirruses coming in one after. It's actually the first time I ever got snarky on the radio. And I've always resisted that, but I actually did say something like, it was a Cirrus that had come in, forced us off, hadn't made one call coming all the way in, and then they made a call at 3-mile final. And I just thought, oh, nice to finally hear from you or something. It was brutal. It was brutal. So I guess that's just what it is when you're doing these kinds of things
So I think I will just say, if you can, was this at Bowling Green?
Yeah.
I mean, if you could go find a non-towered field that has a published approach that's just not very used that often.
Yeah.
Most of mine, we've got 5 non-towered airports within a 15-minute flight that we can choose from. So that disperses all that training traffic, and it helps keep that type of congestion down. So yes, it happened, but it didn't happen as often. And if you can, God willing, find a tower, that's not a towered airport, that's not that busy, that really takes care of everything. But
yeah, it just happened to be kind of where we were coming out of.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't anything close by. But yeah, so I really, really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and it was a lot of fun, and I think I did pretty well overall, and that was refreshing and nice. But it's going to get crazy, and my favorite part of the whole thing, when you're so this is my tail wheel instructor that is also now a CFII, our friend Ben, and when we landed, he said that landing was straight as an arrow. And I just thought, yes, it was just that's the greatest compliment.
Supreme validation.
This right, but I was like, oh man, this is the highest compliment of all time. So anyway, I had a great day. Everything went well. There's one detail though that I didn't talk about, which is that I got back to the hangar on a high, have just done all this great flying, and one of the hangar latches had stuck, and I didn't see that it had stuck, even though I'd released it. And I hit the door open, and it bent the. Ooh. But anyway, so you can't win them all.
Ben, so that's 140 Ben, the coffee shop dude.
Yes, true.
Yeah. So he was on the podcast, and I will have to dig out that episode. Yeah. It's also the 140 that's in our live stream intro video. So
that's true. Yeah.
Mr. That 140 Ben, not 182 Ben.
That's right.
Some comments here. Cheryl says, "What? Brian shooting approaches? Be still my heart." And Mr. Geek says, "How not real was it? Not real with a hood, or not real without a hood?"
Yeah, not real with a clear apparatus that is shaded on my face, but yeah. So I'm just saying he was doing. I wasn't actually on the radio. You know what I mean? We're just doing the talk back, and there's a lot of aspects of it where it's not real. So that makes it pretty. I was just worried about trying to just do some good flying and some precise flying.
You want to ease into it. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't need to jump in feet first.
Not to mention that I'm just not in a place where I really can do anything other than ease into it based on just I'm not entering into the full sphere of instrument training. But he just became a CFII, and so it's a symbiotic thing. He's learning how to instruct in that capacity, and so it's helpful for him. It's helpful for me. So
I like our friend in the show, his comment, radio free Cirrus.
Yeah.
There was talk about what a grouping of cirrus is, a parade of cirruses. I think that the term you're looking for is a canopy of cirruses.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've been a little bit busy. I did it was kind of a last minute Angel Flight mission that I picked up. And I flew the 182 to Augusta to pick up the airport. And my update on aviation kind of folds right into our topic for the night. And that's flying the pattern work, perfect patterns, however you want to look at it. But I'm a little over 1,100 hours now. And, I was faced with a situation that I don't know if it was perfect. And I guess I would like to ask you two what you two would do in this situation. So, Ted, do you have the airport diagram that you can pull up, at least for our live audience in the chat? They can see it and you guys can see it.
And we can describe it as well.
I was going to try to do that. So, Augusta, this is Daniel Field, Delta November.
Where's the 18th hole?
18th hole is north of the runway 1129.
Okay.
That's not on
the plate.
It is not
DNL,
on the
plate. Delta November Lima.
That's right.
Okay, great.
Daniel Field. So for those in the audience, there's two runway services. There's runways 1129 and 523, and they intersect at each other's very end. So you have on runway 11, you have probably about 3,500 of usable runway before where you can hold short of the intersection. And runway 5 probably has about 3,700 feet of runway before the intersection. So you have almost the full length to play with. And I was on flight following. And I don't know if Ted, if you want to still leave that up there or not, but I was on flight following, and I picked up the weather, and the winds were 080 at 9 knots. So it's 30 degrees off either runway. Okay? So it doesn't matter which runway 11 or runway 5.
Yeah.
There were 2 planes in the pattern that were training, 2 Cessna 172s. And they were in the pattern for runway 11. Now, when I'm coming in, when I get handed off to Augusta approach, I mean, it's just where I ended up. I am basically in line to land on runway 11 from 50 miles out. It's just where I ended up. And I'm still on with Augusta, but I'm listening to the CTAF on my second radio to hear what everybody's doing. And I was watching them on ADSB, and I could see that there were 2 planes in the pattern for runway 11, and they were making left traffic. So I get on the radio and I make a call out, and I did it a little earlier than I normally do. I was about 15 miles out. And what I decided to do, and I see we have a question from One Dull Geek, is DNL a towered or pilot controlled? It is pilot controlled. And thank you for calling out, because I think that's a very important point. I call out that I'm going to just enter the pattern. I didn't feel like doing a lot of going way to the north and then enter on the 45 and then join the pattern with 2 planes in there. I just didn't feel like that didn't mitigate any risk. So I was going to stay high and just fly the upwind right over the top of them. I was going to say 800 feet above pattern altitude, depending on where they were when I got there. But that was kind of my early on game plan. And then I'll enter a left crosswind and the left downwind and what have you, and just work my way into the pattern. I kind of remember that being an option. I don't know if that was the right one at the time. And then I get about 10 miles and I make a position report. And one of the pilots, which I'm pretty sure was an instructor, said the wind is actually favoring runway 5 a little bit better. And he said, you could just enter a left base on runway 5. And I'm looking at where the other plane was and where they were, and I knew that I had almost the full runway to use. And so that's what I elected to do, is I positioned myself to enter on about a 3 or 5 mile, about 3 mile left base into runway 5. One of the planes that was in the pattern had done a full stop and taxi back to the FBO, but one was still in the pattern, and he was in the downwind when I was touching down. So
for runway 11.
That's correct.
Okay.
For runway 11. But it just got me thinking. I mean, I don't think what I did was anything wrong. But I'm just curious what others would have done in that situation. And I propose a question to y'all. Would y'all have maneuvered to just enter on the 45 for a left downwind to runway 11?
Those are the ones that I really hate. Is you're not in a great position to enter a downwind. You're almost in the worst possible. And I've done that even at pattern height, enter on just on the upwind, just overfly. I've done it above it. If you do it above it, you need to go way outside of it to descend, so you're not descending on someone. When you look at these 2 runways, there's a 60-degree difference between them. So you coming in on a base, you can come in, if you're just going the same direction you're going, you're on a 60-degree left turn instead of a 90-degree to final, which makes a lot of sense to me. It's not that much of a change than overflying 11 or 11, depending on who you are.
And I was far enough out where I was nowhere close to the final for runway 11. Nathan wants me to say words that I'm not going to say. I love him dearly, but I'm just not a 5 for a tree kind of guy.
No. Yeah.
There you go.
So Mr. Ballard wants Ben to say fife or tree, which my plane is 503, I don't say any. I'm just 503. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It. And remember, there is no active runway, right? And yeah. What do you
I
think?
have a thought.
I'm anxious to hear your thought.
I hate it. I hate it, Ben. I'm coming in hot in the other direction here. Only reason I say that, so I have definitely never joined and overflown the active quote unquote runway and just joined on an upwind and then circled around. Partially in a low wing, especially, I would never do that. And because I can't, totally see everything.
You can't see below you, which is why I was higher, is because I'm in high wing. I have better visibility up higher.
What if you go below the pattern? Sorry. Worst idea ever.
So I am a huge believer in flying what are the prescribed entries for patterns, period. End of story. Doesn't matter how convenient it is or not. I know that other people don't abide by this, and that's fine. We can be different. But
is an upwind pattern entry not prescribed?
No. Is it? I've never heard of it. I don't think that it is.
Okay.
To me, it seems very dangerous as any kind of, I don't know. Well, maybe it's I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but I would say it's equal. Okay. A direct midfield entry is something that I do all the time. And I consider those to be a little bit more, not dangerous, but just, I mean, you're heading across the intersections at pattern altitude. So I'm a big fan of predictability and having as many opportunities for other people to understand natively where I might be if they don't totally understand where I am, and have a native instinct perhaps of what my intentions are, even if they don't totally have that in their head or didn't quite hear what I said the last call or whatever. And I can say, for me, I would never expect, oh, well, this guy's probably just going to, just cruise over into the upwind and then circle back around. That would not be something that I would think of as an anticipated behavior of a pilot and a pattern. So that's, I think, how
it didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right to me. But
yeah.
I also, there's other airspaces that don't really come into play, but Fort Stewart is probably 10 or 15 miles away. They've got a restricted airspace. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to maneuver around. And I don't know why it just came into my head. Well, let's just fly above the pattern, and then we'll descend down, enter into a upwind, and then a left cross, and then. But you were, I looking at it now, what I did was the lesser of two evils. I entered that left base instead of trying to stay on runway 11 and being on the same runway as the other two airplanes.
No, so that's not even what I'm saying either. I mean, now that would be, if it's not any difference, right? You might as well just. I can see how an instructor or somebody saying, well, hey, you can do this. It starts to kind of plant a seed of suggestion, which I obviously think we all have to be careful of when somebody's, you are the PIC, and I'm not saying you were not acting as PIC, Ben, or you evaluated that. But I guess for a lot of people, especially newer pilots, if you're really not used to coming into an airport yet, and you've only got a few cross countries under your belt, all it takes is for one pilot to say, well, why don't you just do this? And you're going to already feel like I should probably just be complicit to that person's suggestion because I don't.
I hear what you're saying, but
hold on. Let me get all this out.
Sure.
So you were coming in on a direct left base for 05. Is that right?
No,
that's correct.
Straight on. You were coming in on 11. Oh, you were doing left base on 5.
You were,
yeah.
So they were running the pattern.
I was lined up for runway 11.
The guy said, why don't you just come in runway 5? You were better set up to do, you were coming from the northwest and you were doing a left base entry into 05. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So in that case, Ted, can you pull Ted, let's go back to the grass. It's like this.
Yes.
What is it? It's like the Kennedy film or something. Okay, so
yeah, it's a Zapruder.
Zapruder film.
Yeah. So okay, I see here. So yeah, if you were on a left base for 05, then all you had to do was just bring it in a little bit more, overfly. Even though they're in the pattern, you could just do a direct midfield entry from that direction to enter the left downwind. Oh, wait, hold on a second. For 0.5.
You'd have to make a hard right turn to enter
first of all,
0.5.
The intersection makes this weird too. I get it.
So first of all, it's a right pattern for runway 5.
Oh,
okay.
Great. So then you could have just done a 45.
I could have.
Downwind.
Well, but I feel like that could have put me into conflict with that plane if it was, a beam the numbers. I'm going to have to maneuver around them to be able to get to that downwind entry or that midfield entry. Do you see what I mean?
I see. Well, either way, there's options to do standard.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I do. Here's what I'm thinking. There was an instructor that was saying other planes, when I got in there were 2 King Airs sitting on the ramp. And those King Airs had come in. I asked them after the fact. They had come in on runway 5. And I feel like there's an unwritten rule at this airport that training traffic, when you have winds from where they are, you could use either 11 or 5. The training traffic uses 11 because it's the shorter runway. And all non-training aircraft use runway 5. And I kind of felt like there was a nudge to that, hey, if you're coming here to hang out, you could use runway 5.
Got it. I got it. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Now, that was a very brief radio call, but I kind of put it together after the fact. I agree with you, and especially after our adventure in West Virginia, entering the 7 Mile left base, I am very conscious of my pattern entries solely because Brian likes to give me a hard time about it, and there's obviously a lot to give me a hard time about across my world, and I just don't need to add any more. But
I guess it's
you're right to do so. It's a learning experience.
If they have standards for this and it's written in stone in some way, these are your options,
right,
to enter the pattern. Then just do one of those things to enter the pattern. I don't understand how it. So I don't know. To me, it's just like that's what you're supposed to do, and so you just do it. But I understand that you're PIC, and there's a lot of different things that can factor in. It's pilot controlled. It's there could be terrain. There's a million different things. But yeah. And by the way, our friend Lord Alpha Juliet is saying there's no 0 or O on the runway. I just want to make a point. I have, whether you like it or not, I have the tendency to say runway 05. Than runway 5. The reason why I have that tendency, even though some people say that that's wrong, is because I trained at an insanely busy, non-towered John Toon before they got a tower. So it was the wildest west of wildest west, busy jets and every other kind of aircraft happening all at the same time. And the runways are runway 2 and runway 20.
Yes.
And they would change, and people would do different things. And so I got used to doing 02 and 20 to really put something in front of the 2 to make it very clear on the radio, the distinction. And then unfortunately what happened is that now I do that for everything, and maybe I don't need to, but I tend to do that. And actually my instrument instructor friend called me out for that just the other day. So I don't know if I can undo that.
So I want to call out our friend Erica's comment in the chat. AC 90-66 Charlie is the best reference for operations at non-towered airports. And I will be revisiting that and committing it to memory. And I promise everybody in our community, by the time I fly to Gillespie Field, my pattern entries will be undeniably perfect.
So the one thing that hasn't been added to this is everybody follows the pattern. That's where you're looking for everybody, unless they're shooting an IFR approach.
Right.
That's right.
So
as Brian
now you've got
on his.
Right. You've got.
What I should have just said is this is Cirrus 42911, and I could have just shot a 70-mile final, just go straight in.
If you're in a Cirrus, that's what you're doing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at 90-66C now. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't, I've found a lot of people are not aware of just what the direct midfield entry is. And I actually have a distinct memory of when I was in flight training, and it was one of the first times, if not the first time, that me and my instructor went to another airport, and we were trying to figure out which way to come in for a minute. And I just said, I'm just going to do a direct midfield entry here. And he was actually, well, wait, you can't. He didn't even know that was an entry that you can do. And it is a little strange to be crossing the highway at pattern altitude, going across the road and the runway at pattern altitude and joining a midfield left downwind or whatever at pattern altitude. But, especially in a low wing, that's, I can see pretty well if I'm doing that. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of the 45, but I mean, I in one of my recent videos, we were avoiding somebody that was coming on the interpretation of what the 45 is spatially relative to the runway and distance and everything else, just like people's patterns vary widely. I have found definitely that people say, I'm coming in, maneuvering 45, whatever. And boy, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, because we ended up flying directly at someone that they were so swung out on this wild kind of angular 45 that it was not anywhere where I would have expected someone to be. I mean, luckily we were already climbing well above them, but yeah, pattern entries. I mean, that's a thing. And we haven't even brought up teardrop. Should we? No, let's not even talk about the teardrop, because it's not a thing.
It isn't. We've never heard that term. There's no manufactured conspiracy about this at all.
It's a great point from Zach M. The suggestion of another presumed instructor is one thing. What if the other plane is a student solo not watching for an unconventional pattern entry? I think this is a great point, and I will take that to heart. Absolutely. I will say I felt like my plan was the deconflicted with other planes the best, because with two planes in the pattern and trying to work my way in for the downwind from a 45, I was a little worried about that. And I knew it was training traffic. And so, if I just went to a completely different runway, I would instantly deconflict. But Zach, your point is very well taken, that we're not all, that we've got students in there that could be soloing that may not
as a person who just recently was cruising around in a Cub with no electrical system. Boy, did that have my head on a swivel in a completely different way. So you could have easily had somebody in that pattern that you just didn't know about at all.
Totally agree. I agree with y'all. It was referenced in the chat, Jason Miller from the Final Points, who I really like a lot. Spent a fair amount of time. Go watch his videos as he talks about the teardrop entries. And basically, you go fly far enough away from the runway to turn around to enter the 45 is the way I took that whole discussion, is that you're really not teardropping into the pattern. You're teardropping into the 45 entry into that pattern. So,
does Garmin Pilot have, because this is obviously a ForeFlight created problem for the procedure map entries. So does Garmin have a procedure type of option where it'll map out for you the approach in?
If it does, I don't know about it. I know that it does help you for your IFR training and hold entries, but I don't know of any. And One Dog Geeks in our chat, he used Garmin Pilot for a while, but I'm not aware of it, Brian, that it recommends how to enter the pattern.
Well, I was going to say that's what's massively helpful to me is I just use the procedure function in ForeFlight, and whatever best wind for this particular runway. Hopefully that's the one that people are using, but if not, I'll adjust it. But you can say it'll say what kind of entry do you want to do. Unfortunately, it has teardrop as an option, which I just don't use, and then just choose one of the other available options, and it puts you on a pretty good. It'll set you up to enter the 45 nicely, or to do a direct midfield entry, and it'll bisect the runway perfectly and everything. You can kind of fly the line a little bit, or at least reference it a little bit.
Maybe that's why my pattern entries have been so horrible, is I just didn't have foreflight to show me.
Well, obviously we should not rely on such things, but it is, it does help. Having done that at, 80 or 90 airports that are different, you get a sense now of how spatially it's helped me align my spatial perception to pattern entries, if that helps.
It does. So were there other areas that you wanted to hit on about this topic? Training pattern and trying things, the differences there?
Well, besides patterns, the other question that I had that I want to go around the table with here is, why do you still do pattern work? You've got way too many hours. You've got 4-digit hours. Why are you still flying the pattern? What are you doing with it? And I actually know you two have different answers. So Ben, you want to go first?
I mean, apparently I need to practice more pattern entry stuff. Because you do get rusty on it, or rusty's not the right word. Lazy, I think, is the right word. That you're just trying to find the easiest way in. I mean, it's kind of one of those things to me that it's doing the right thing, and it's the right thing if you're doing something and nobody's watching, right? So you're going to Bowling Green and there's not an airplane within 50 miles of you. Are you going to do the straight in? Or are you going to do? That's exactly my point. And I think as we get further down our aviation journey, our hours build up, there's a tendency to get a little lazy. And I will also say, I feel like in the last 6 months, the majority of the flying I've been doing is into the towered airports. And there may be a little bit of rust build up. I've flown into Daniel Field quite a bit. And, a left base entry, when I was on an IFR plan, that's how they put you into that airport.
Right.
They're going to put you on 5, and they're going to put you in a left base. Probably further out than where I was. But it's just a pattern that I've repeated. And I've watched other airplanes coming into that airport doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
And so there's a bias that's built at that airport.
It's like,
does it make it right? No.
It's like you're your own ATC vectoring yourself to final.
Watching for other traffic, and we're keeping separation.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And Ted, your question for me, in terms of actually flying the pattern landing practice, that kind of thing. I mean, it is the way in which I stay sharp, because it requires a lot of repetition and movement. And, when you're doing cross-country flying, it's a different type of muscle that you're flexing. It's usually more cerebral, and you're not really doing a lot of actual flying. You're just kind of cruising along. So, and you'll get your one landing in wherever you go and whatever. I like high-paced pattern flying. I like keeping it super tight, lots of short approaches, mixing up power settings, doing unconventional things. And I think I've mentioned this before, but when you are in training and they're teaching you how to land, you fly patterns in a very predictable, it's all about being predictable and repetition. And you have all these, okay, we were abeam the numbers. Now I pull power to whatever setting. And then now I'm putting in 1 notch of flaps. And okay, now I'm putting the nose down a little bit. We got there's a little, pitch up moments that now I do this. And, and you had to memorize that song note for note in order to learn how to land, because if you didn't have any aspect of your approach pattern legs right, it was a downstream dominoes fight to awful, which is where I spent a lot of purgatory and a lot of time when I was training.
It's all you could do if you follow the recipe to possibly land.
Yeah.
You must put in flaps here. When you turn on to base, you're at this speed, and you're still only about 20% of those are going to land.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, it's in engineering, we call it happy path, right? It's like, let's get one way we can make this work. And
that's right.
You've got the formula down. That doesn't mean that this is the only way you can land.
Right.
But that's my experience with you is, put yourself in a position. What if I'm too high? What if I'm too low? What if, and that to me, is what you do.
Yeah, I do a lot of partial power or, things like this. I had a situation just the other day when I was coming into Music City, and there was a plane holding short, runway 17, and I was pretty high, pattern altitude, but already still pattern altitude on base, waiting to see if they were going to jump out and go. In which case I was just going to sidestep or go around or do something evasive. So I was keeping my altitude because I didn't know which way it was going to go yet. And I didn't want to start a really sincere descent until I could really be sure about what they were doing. And I thought, well, I'm going to be nice. And they're holding short. I'm going to cut this real tight. My base turn, bam, it's essentially a short approach, but I'm still at pattern altitude on base on this kind of short approach, waiting just one more second to see what they're going to do. And of course, they come out on the runway. And so then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm definitely going to be going around, but I'm just going to hang out here, hang out. But they finally got wheels up and, down the runway a bit. And so here I am on a short approach at pattern altitude, like sort of just off the numbers at, it was 1,600 feet or whatever. And I just pulled the power and put the nose down and had all the flaps in and
let the Hershey bar wings do their job.
That's right. I was joking with my tail wheel instructor guy friend. I was like, you know what? I still haven't done a slip in a very long time because I haven't really needed to in this plane. And I didn't even in this scenario. It just went right down. So, but there's a lot of weird rhythm situations. And so I just thought I'm going to keep altitude. If I was in a position where I hadn't done a lot of pattern work and a lot of non-traditional setups for landings and various things, I would have been massively uncomfortable in that position. But I was comfortable enough in that position to kind of go, I'm going to hang out here. I'm fine. I know I can get down because I've done a lot of dramatic descents and various things. I have a feel for the plane. So I think that's a lot of what it's about for me is really just having the opportunity to feel the plane in all of the different ways that things can kind of come up. And so that's why I love doing pattern work. And obviously the landing is just so much fun. It's the precision challenge.
I absolutely agree with that. I want to hit, we have in our chat, Jim from the Flying Midwest podcast, admittedly being a towered airport dweller, my biggest pattern flub was coming in and just entering the right downwind on a busy day at a non-towered airport and not setting up to fly over an inner left. I think there may be something to the fact that when you do most of your flying in towered airports, there's probably is a little bit of rust that gets built up, or rust and laziness, maybe a combination thereof.
Yeah. Jim follows up with that and says maybe it's complacency. And that's certainly true. When you've been in the towered environment, you get to enter whatever's convenient that they tell you to. Also got to hit Mr. Gillette, who they're talking about number of ways they enter. And one of them is, I'm just going to orbit for a second and join before I get into that mess.
Yep.
That is also an option. It's like, I hear a lot of radio traffic. Let's just hang out for a minute. It's amazing. 1 minute completely changes the scenario. And of course, Lord Alpha Juliet, I only enter the pattern one way because I was inverted. So yeah. For me, I kind of have three things. The one is, the more we fly, the fewer landings we do in our flying. When you're in training, you're doing 10 an hour. By this time, you're doing an angel flight and you're doing one every 3 hours. And for me, that's some of the reason to do it, which leads into number two, which is I just forget. I don't understand how to fly the plane in a specific scenario at a specific speed to land. For some reason, that's always been a problem with me with the CT, is I don't feel settled in my approaches. But the number one thing, the reason that I do it is because I want every landing to be a power of 180. And I want to have some precision or some comfort in doing that. And two things out of that winter flying video that I did. The one is, it's a failure because I can hear when I'm going into Aurora, I can hear that I'm throttling up. that's the sign that I failed in my mind. And then the other is when I came back and there's basically this wall of dark rain and they say, you want to do a short approach? I'm like, yeah. And I did. And I did something you can do in a light sport, which is just slow it way down, like way down, and just let it sink. So I was able to come in on just a stupid short approach. I've done that before. I have an idea of what I can do. And so I know that's an option. So for me, those are kind of the reasons that I do it. Mostly, number two, I just forget how to land. So,
I probably should get out more and do more pattern work, admittedly, and maybe I'll make that a higher priority this spring. You guys practice the power offs. For some reason, I really enjoy doing the slips.
Oh yeah.
There's something about it. So there's a guy on Instagram, Bananas. He has a J3 Cub, and he has some of the coolest shots with the little mist on the ground and with the vortices and stuff. But he slips that thing so beautifully, and that's kind of like I want to aspire to do that in my 182. I want to be able to just bring it down and then straighten it out and just set it right down. So I like to practice those a little bit more often, and it's easier to set up. Just like you said, Ted, don't descend, stay at pattern altitude, and when you get on final, just throw it in there, throw the controls in there. So,
yeah.
Very good. A lively topic tonight. It's been a great group of folks. Thanks for everybody joining on a Sunday night. Yes, I had to travel for work tomorrow, and that wasn't going to happen. And I appreciate everybody's flexibility.
We're here for you, Ben.
And I appreciate that. Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to bring up before the group?
No, I think we're good. And hello to our friend Luke's Landing, who just showed up in the chat. I guess he just missed it, but he said slips feel like you're drifting a 2002 turbo WRX. That is so nice.
That's kind of why I do it as well. Is just because I can't do that in my truck. So, well, legally. Tonight's bit of wisdom: evening news is where they begin with "good evening" and then proceed to tell you why it isn't. We appreciate everybody joining us. Signing off, episode 116 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.